Hi, good evening. Welcome to our final parent-family table talk. We are so excited to have our families join us this evening as we talk about everything housing and residence life, dining on campus. But I know there's so many parents out there who just have a lot of questions regarding move-in. I have a countdown going on, really, literally a couple weeks until our students start moving in. And so we're happy to have you join us tonight. For those of you who are new, welcome. My name is Alicia Newell, and I have the privilege of serving as the Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs. I have been with the university for about 17 years. I'm a proud alumni of the university, and being a first generation college student, it's really important for me to make sure that we're providing those additional resources and communications to parents, just to make sure that we're helping your students through this process. As a parent myself, I look for this type of information with my own student. And so if there's any questions, comments, concerns that you may have throughout today's program, feel free to drop those questions in the chat box and we'll get to them. I'm going to turn it over to my friend and sidekick, Kim Sandlin, to introduce herself.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kim Sandlin, serve as the Director of Student Success. I'm happy to be here tonight at our final one. It's been a whirlwind of a summer. We started orientation sessions in May and have been going strong ever since. I think all three of us have been going strong ever since, making sure that our new students and families are armed with the best information that we can give them. So we're happy you are joining us tonight. I, along with Alicia and Katie, I'm an alum of Wichita State as well. Had a great experience here, and I think you've heard Alicia and I talk. We had great experiences. I'm sure Katie did as well. We want your students to have better experiences than we did, and that's a high bar to try to reach as a university. So student success is here to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to support your students academically and also personally and socially as well. So I'm, here tonight for those last minute questions that maybe you have a couple of housing questions, but throughout the evening you think, oh, what about those classes? Or what do I do about tutoring? Or what do I do about, whatever it may be? This is really, once we're finished with our housing and dining information, a time to wrap up the summer with you all in terms of those of you joining us online, and really answer any of those last minute questions that you have. Lots of chatter, I think, on Facebook about housing, lots of chatter about what to bring, when to move in, when do I get to eat? When does my kid get to eat? And, we're here to answer those. Lots of questions about Blackboard and classes, and it's getting to be August. So everyone, I think, switches gears mentally in August to think about finally a schedule for our students. We're just talking about that as all of us are moms. We're like, we're just ready for the kids to be back in school so that there's some kind of structure. So if you're in our boat, we're in, with you, hoping for the same. So I will stop and throw it over to Katie, who's going to introduce herself and get us kicked off with housing information.
Perfect. Thanks, Kim. Yes, my name is Katie Austin. I serve as our Director for Housing and Residence Life. Very happy to be with you all tonight to chat about move-in as it is fast approaching. We are very busy in the halls right now, getting ready for all the students to show up in the next, in 10 days, our first group of early arrivals will be here. So I'm mostly going to talk about move-in and what that first week will look like. No matter when your student shows up throughout that first week, we will be ready and excited to welcome them to campus. And then I'll touch on dining a little bit and really open it up for questions. So move-in does start Saturday, August 13th, and that is for our early arrivals. So your student would have been notified by a program that they're participating in if they get to move in on Saturday. So that's our Passage to Success students, our Shocker Engineering Academy. Some folks that are in band will be coming early. The first official day of general move-in. So if your student picked a time slot, they would have seen Sunday, August 14th as the start of general move-in. move-in. And Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, the 14th through the 16th, are the days your student can show up. And no matter which time slot they picked, because they were prompted to go in and pick a time slot to let us know when their arrival will be, that way we can be well prepared for them. Don't stress about that too much, because if you show up anytime between 9 and 5 on Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, we will be there to welcome you. We will let you in. It doesn't matter if you're early or late. We really use those arrival time slots just to help us kind of hone in on how many to expect at each time and manage traffic appropriately. But you are welcome to show up on any 3 of those days, and we will be fully staffed and ready to welcome you and get your student checked in. Some things your students should do before arriving. We recommend they log back into their housing application portal, verify that time slot, verify their phone number. And this is something new. So if you've had students here before, they didn't have to do this. We are changing our access system this year, and their key is going to be on their mobile phone. So they are required to go in and confirm their cell phone number and download an app. It's our Just In mobile app, and they got information about this in their Shocker email account. And that app, a key will get pushed to their phone number for their room. So they will use that to get into their room this year. If for any reason their phone isn't working for that, or we, of course, have international students arriving, we will have other options. We'll have card keys that we'll be issuing as needed, but we're really moving to this mobile credentialing system. It's more efficient. It's actually safer. It gives us a lot more control over access in our buildings and who has that and turning it on and off. So that's really the reason for this move. It's kind of that next technology, and we're excited to get that implemented this year. So we will walk your student through that. If they show up and haven't done any of those things, we will certainly help them on the spot, but it would behoove you to do that ahead of time, and that will speed things up for sure, because then as you arrive, we'll check you into our system. It'll push a key to the app, it'll buzz on their phone, and they'll have their key and can move right in. They'll still need to have their Shocker card when they arrive for move-in. And if they don't have it, it's not a big deal. We just ask they bring a different state identification so we can at least verify their identity. Their Shocker card is still their external access. So it gets them in the outside doors at Shocker, the suites, or the flats. At some point, that'll move to the phone as well, but we're just doing the rooms at this moment, getting that all finished before we move on to doing external doors. So the Shocker card office intends to be open on Sunday afternoon if you show up on the first day of general move-in, and of course they'll be open Monday and Tuesday. So worst case scenario, we would issue your student a temporary guest pass, and they would go get their Shocker card later if they haven't been able to do that yet. So again, don't stress, we will work with you either way. But yeah, so your student will show up to the lobby of their building. So the flats lobby, the suites front desk, or the Shocker hall lobby, and you'll see lots of signage. They can go directly to that building. There'll be parking at each area. Shocker Hall doesn't have a lot of parking around it, so students either pull into the tiny parking lot on the south side of the building or the loading zone on the north side, and they'll be our friends at the University Police Department will be helping direct traffic and get you to the right place. You'll be able to unload in those locations, and once all of your students' belongings are unloaded into some of our moving carts with the help of some of our move-in volunteers, you'll be able to move your vehicle. We'll ask that you do move your vehicle pretty quickly so we can get the next folks into that loading zone. And you'll move it over to the lot near our baseball stadium. So it's a little ways away, and we know that. So we have golf carts at the ready to give you a ride back to Shocker Hall or back to the suites or flats. So we're prepared to escort you via golf cart to the building to reconnect with your student at that point. So we've got this really down. We've been doing this for a lot of years. It's a pretty good process, as long as you kind of follow along with the information and the instructions that we'll give when you get here. Students have the option to print out a placard to put in their vehicle before arriving. If you're able to do that, that's great. It asks, it prints your student's name and phone number so that, again, if a vehicle is left sitting in a loading zone too long or in the lot 8 on our south side of the building, we might call you and ask you to move it. It just helps us to, again, keep traffic flowing as we get about 780 students moved into Shocker Hall with no large parking lot nearby. So really at the suites and flats, there are big parking lots that you're able to use. So it's not a big deal if your student is in one of those buildings. So once your student has, pulled up to the loading zone, you're getting your things unloaded. We've got a lot of moving bins. They all have wheels on them. It's very convenient. They'll check in the lobby, and then they can head straight to their room and get unpacked. And you're welcome to hang out with them as long as you like. We'll have a move-in brunch on that Sunday, so you can go with your student to brunch in the dining hall if you're interested. The dining hall does open on Sunday, so the early programs are generally feeding their students. So the first day of the dining hall is Sunday. And from Sunday the 13th through Sunday the 21st, I believe, it is brunch and dinner. So it's a little bit of a different schedule. And then as soon as school starts, it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, and late night every night. So your student will have access to the dining hall to use their unlimited meal plans starting that Sunday. And it'll be, there'll be a lot going on. If your student's in a living learning community, they'll have the opportunity to go to some meetings that early week, that Wednesday. If they're involved in any other programs or they just need to go around campus to get some things taken care of, they're able to move in much earlier this year than we even have done in the past for those reasons. So they'll have a few more days to get acclimated and settled in before classes start on that following Monday. So we're super excited to have students back in the building. We are, ready to see everyone again. And it's always strange when it's so empty in the summer right before they arrive back. Regarding dining, your students also generally have dining dollars, and those can be used at any of the retail options in the Radigan Student Center, as well as the Ground House, which is the coffee shop attached to Shocker Hall. There's going to be a new option that'll be opening shortly in the new business building, Woolsey Hall, and they'll be able to use their dining dollars over there too. So Starbucks is probably the most popular option for dining dollars, but they can be used in any of those places, or they can also take an extra guest into the dining hall with their dining dollars too. So accepted everywhere on campus, including Shocker Grill and Lanes now. So we're also getting a new dining option. So in addition to Freddy's and Chick-fil-A and Panda Express, Chartwell's, our dining provider, is opening a new fourth option, and it is, forgot the name, but it's going to be a breakfast diner essentially. So it will be serving a lot of different breakfast foods, avocado toast, some sandwiches, pancakes. So it should be a neat option for students this year. Starbucks is there in the RSC. They can, of course, get more than just food over at the Ground House. We have some basic supplies and things. They can get laundry detergent, toilet paper, things like that if they are needing those with their dining dollars at the Ground House. As we talk about things like, toilet paper and laundry detergent, if you're wondering about what to bring, if you're kind of getting in packing mode now, I really recommend less is more to start with. Get your student in the space, help them get a feel for it before you show up with too many things and it gets too crowded too quickly. You're allowed to have futons or bean bags and all those things. We don't recommend that because, again, it takes up a lot of space, and these are dorm rooms. They're nice. They're very nice spaces. I'm hopeful you've been to campus and seen them. But if you show up with those big furniture pieces, it just all of a sudden takes up a lot of space, and you're out of options for really making your room, moving furniture around, making it kind of your own. Students can bring appliances like a Keurig. They can bring an air fryer. The general rule of thumb with bringing any type of appliance is make sure it has a contained heating element, not an open heating element. So, for example, an old school coffee pot is not allowed because it has that open heating element versus a Keurig where it's a contained heating element. So griddles, George Foreman grills, things that people could set things on and they might cause a fire are prohibited. But if your student is interested in bringing an item like that and using it in the lounge, kitchen, laundry, what we call our LKLs at Shocker Hall, or in the main community kitchen over at the suites or the flats, they can work with their residence life coordinator to do that too. So those are some of the basics. I would love to hear the questions that you all have and make sure I touched on things that are of interest to you and that you feel confident about coming to campus next week and getting your student moved into the halls. So if Alicia or Kim have questions that you've heard from parents or any that are coming through the chat, just let me know.
We got lots, Katie, so get ready.
Okay.
Refrigerators. Should families buy them? Can they rent them?
Great question. So all of our refrigerators that were available for rent have been rented at this time. So we do have refrigerators, safes, and lofts that are optional rentals. They were already emailed about that. And if they were able to get one, they have been notified. So do check your student's WSU email for that. So at this point, you would want to bring your own. We do recommend that you talk to your roommates and see if they're bringing one, because not always do you need 2 fridges, 2 TVs, 2 microwaves. So oftentimes you guys can work together on that. And again, less is more. There's something to be said for getting maybe the bigger fridge and just sharing versus having 2 of the smaller fridges in your space. Our packing list on the housing website, which is wichita.edu/housing, there's a packing list towards the bottom, talks about the sizes. Essentially, it's about 5 cubic feet or less is what we recommend. So don't go all the way to that 3/4 size fridge. Stay a little smaller than that, and it won't blow any of our fuses.
Ooh, please no. Okay, and so moving on the 17th. I think that's when their student is planning, so that's perfect.
Sure. So that's totally fine.
Yeah.
After the 16th, it's not full move in, so you just might not see the whole red carpet rolled out. They can still definitely move in, and they would go to their information desk in their building at that time to move in. We'll still have staff available. There might be a few less move-in volunteers, and we have to give the golf carts back at some point, but they're welcome to show up any of those days after move-in as well, and we'll certainly be ready to get them in.
Right. And so there may be some families, Katie, that have scheduled, and maybe this is a question for both Kim and Katie, families who are coming from out of state who will also be attending orientation, during a time frame. What are your recommendations for them?
Sure. So I know there is an orientation happening during move-in, and you're welcome to move in before or after that, whatever works best for your student. So you can certainly, we're available between 9 and 5, and even after that, we'll have staff around. So if your orientation goes long or you need to move in later in that evening, they can always come to the desks. They'll be open. We have 24-hour desks this year, so pop by when they're done. Or again, we do ask that the student is there for check-in. I think that's the key thing I want to communicate. Oftentimes a parent will show up and say, can I move my student in? Can I check in? And we really need that student there to make sure that the key, again, is getting on their mobile device and that they know what's going on, because they'll be the one living there. So please show up with your student to check in.
If you are moving in on the 17th and coming to orientation, we have orientation on the 18th and the 19th. So you can move in on the 17th, come on over to orientation the 18th and the 19th. We typically wrap up between 12:30 and 1 on the second day. So we would be done a little bit earlier on the second day, but we're hosting a freshman lunch for freshman students on Friday until 2 o'clock. And so as long as you're in before orientation, you're going to have no problem. If you are moving in the 18th or the 19th, then that's when we just need to coordinate a little bit. So we typically wrap up day 1. Students are usually done by 4:30, I think it is, because that's when our housing session usually starts. So that would be the time. And your students can let their student leader know if they need to check out a little bit early. That's okay for move-in reasons for this program only. So we will make sure that you get over there. Your student has to be with us for orientation the entire time. So if your student needs to be there for check-in, then we need to coordinate times. But that would only be in effect if your move-in date is the 18th or the morning, early afternoon on the 19th. Licia, you're muted.
Will the RSC be open for bowling and food during move-in? And so, yes, RSC will be open during move-in, just depending on which food establishments with the schedule. All of that, we'll be posting that in the Shocker Family social media pages what those schedules will be. And so just check there just to make sure if that's something you want to do. We have a lot of new students coming in. And so downstairs has been pretty popping lately, just with new students kind of coming in and congregating and meeting one another. So absolutely, we welcome you to join in. Katie, about riser blocks for beds. Do students need to have these installed by staff, or is that something that folks can help them with?
Great question. So we generally only install our own lofts. They can use riser blocks as long as they don't damage our furniture when they're installing those. So there are some that, again, the bed just pops up on top of, and there's no actual issue with that. If it's something that has to screw into our beds, those are not allowed because that can cause damage. Our beds actually go pretty high as it is, so you may try. There are like holes already in the bedpost, and you can just take the little, it's basically a hook, and you can take it out and pop it up a few more, and you can fit, really, the standard size mini fridge can fit under it at its highest level. So you may not need the risers. I would try that option first. Just make sure that if you are altering any of our furniture, that it's not damaging it in any way, or you will be charged for that at the end of the year.
Okay, great. And I think one of the things you said earlier, Katie, I just can't reiterate it enough, is less is better. I always tell our students, there's, for those who are not from Kansas, we have every season. And sometimes we have multiple seasons within one season. And so for fall, it's making sure that, we're bringing the appropriate clothing during that time frame. When students go home for fall break, for Thanksgiving break, that's where they can change out closets and bring home additional clothes that they're no longer needing, bring back a different set of clothes, because there's literally, this space is not as big as some students would like or what they're used to. We had a student a couple years ago who I recall whose family brought a U-Haul, and they pulled up, and I'm like, oh my. And I just kind of sat there and watched, and I'm looking at all of the stuff they're unloading, and I just kind of paused, and I was like, I wonder how much is going to come back. And sure enough, a couple hours later, they were bringing half of the stuff back because it didn't fit.
Sure.
And so there's some really great tips and tricks that are out there on Pinterest and the website on how to maximize housing, dorm life spaces. Encourage folks to check those out. But really, take time to come and get settled in, and then go on a Target run or a Walmart run or what have you, because then you're going to be able to get a really good feel for what's actually needed in the space, instead of wasting, resources and not being able to use them.
Yeah, it's a great point. And it's a common space a lot of times where you're putting those things. So think of your roommate who might also be showing up with things, and you don't want to just take over. It's better to have some of that communication up front before you make some of those big decisions about how the space is going to look. Good point.
Yeah.
There was a comment that Kaylee made. I just wanted to touch on the communication piece. I mentioned that it might be in your WSU email. So students, make sure you're checking that, WSU email account that you have, and that's your name at shockers.wichita.edu. That's where you're going to find, again, information about who your roommate is, if you didn't see that, about what time slot you picked, about the cost of your room as well. We try to make you aware that, again, if you picked one of those private single rooms and you're wondering why that's so expensive, or you're a little worried about that cost now, there are still doubles and triples left. So we can always make that change for you if needed. But all of that has been communicated in your shockers.wichita.edu email account. So keep an eye on that.
Okay, great. And so Jenny had asked if her son emailed their roommate, but they've not replied. Is there another way for them to connect?
Sure. So as I mentioned, not everybody's checking that email like they maybe should be at this point. So they have some options. If they did it within the application, there's a messaging system within the housing application. There's a chance students aren't logging back in and seeing that. So I would try their shockers at wichita.edu email. Outside of that, there is the Zeme account that admissions uses that a lot of incoming students are a part of. They can check on there. Otherwise, we're all going to be in person and be able to see each other pretty quick here. So you can certainly try to search social media. Some folks, just really haven't been in tune. Now that August has hit, I do feel like people are starting to check these things and say, oh my, like I've been getting emails all summer and I had no idea. So hopefully you'll get in touch sooner than later. But I know a lot of roommates that I see as I walk the halls and move in, this is the first time they're talking. This is the first time they're touching base with each other, and that goes fine too. So try not to worry too much about it. It usually works out great once students are on campus and they're really engaged in, okay, I'm here. It's time to get to know my roommate. And the RAs will do a lot to help with that too. Our resident assistants, our upperclassmen students, there's one on each floor in the buildings, and they're going to be going around making sure that that roommates are getting connected. They'll also be helping with those roommate contracts that folks fill out. That's just a chance for students to set expectations with each other at the beginning when they're kind of in that honeymoon phase and everybody's getting along well, of what are our expectations for the year? Are we going to share food? Are we having guests stay overnight? Do I like it to be loud? Am I a morning person? Am I not? All the things that make a difference in having that good roommate foundation. We'll be asking students to participate in that process within the first couple weeks of school. So those are my recommendations.
Yeah. There was a question about South Campus for students to use their dining dollars out at the South Campus.
Great question. So as far as I'm aware, there are not any Chartwells ran facilities out at the South Campus. So a lot of times students will go to the dining hall and they can use the reusable clamshell and get some food to take with them if they're going to the South Campus for the day, or run by the ground house because they have a lot of grab and go sandwiches and things that keep pretty well that you could take with you. So those are my recommendations to make good use of your dining dollars still.
I want to jump in here. This came up at an earlier orientation session as well. So I've passed on that, feedback to the students at the South Campus. Also need a dining option.
Yeah.
Because they need a little grab and go something. Mm-hmm. Whether it's like Megabytes over in John Bardo Center, whether it's like the little snack areas or whatever. And so we're sharing that feedback with Fine Arts in particular, and some different folks, not saying that anything's going to come about, by first day of classes or whatever, but folks are aware of that need. And so I just want to pass that on, that we've definitely heard that, and we are passing that on to hopefully be able to provide something in the future for those students down south. So
absolutely. So, okay, the big question is kind of the caravan, right? And so we're all excited for students to come move in, but it might be me, my partner, my kid, grandma, aunts, uncles, cousins, and maybe a pet. So who all needs to be like dropping off? So I think the question is, what do the extra vehicles do if they don't have anything to unload? What does that look like, Katie?
Yeah, great question. So as you're pulling up, UPD will be welcoming you. Our police department, the officers will be kind of working that traffic portion for us. And if you have nothing in your vehicle that needs to be unloaded, you'll just let them know that, and they'll have you pass through, especially if you're at Shocker Hall, and head straight to that parking lot we mentioned. And we will still have golf carts circling that parking lot looking for folks. So just because we didn't take you to the lot doesn't mean we won't have somebody there to pick you up and bring you back. So we'll be diligent about watching that lot to bring you back over and reconnect with the rest of the family. We have no limitations on how many folks show up this year. Like in the past with COVID, we had to set some limits on how many people joined the student for check-in. It's up to you all. If you can coordinate it, they're welcome to come. We ask that pets stay outside in the courtyard just to limit the amount of chaos we have besides the students coming and going. but you are all welcome to join them. I mean, it's an exciting time, and it's a fun thing to be a part of. So we will have a few folks, some different organizations on campus handing out water and popsicles, and Fairmount Coffee's bringing some snacks. So it's a pretty festive environment. The foundation is going to have some folks from their alumni area with a what are they doing? Some nice photo ops in the Shocker Hall lobby. So be sure to stop by and get a picture with your student and the big Shocker balloons. And Woo will be there on Sunday as well for the big part of Move In. So we invite everyone to join in and, you know, help their student get settled and feel good about sending them off.
Yeah, I don't want to brag, but I do want to brag about Katie and her crew, because I've been to many other campuses for moving in students and mentees, and, you know, and I have yet to visit another institution who has valet move-in service like Wichita State. And when I say valet, we really roll out the red carpet for our students and our families. We have so many of our students, our faculty, staff, campus partners who volunteer their time to welcome everyone to campus, because we are extremely excited just to see students back. And so you literally pull up, you pop open the trunk, open the doors, and people are rushing out with these big yellow carts on wheels. And we're unloading everything. And essentially your student will walk with their stuff to go check in. And so I would say, you know, my mom advice for you is making sure that your boxes, your things are labeled with your student's name and their room number. Because if your items kind of get lost, if maybe you have 2 or 3 carts full that are going up with your student and they get, you know, disconnected from their group, they know at least where they're taking the belongings to. But you shouldn't have to lift a finger, which is great, because we have a lot of volunteers who are helping with that. But it's great. It's quick. It's smooth. It's easy. And then we don't even make you walk. We go and pick you up. And so that's another just great. And so kudos to Katie and her team for always making that such a pleasant experience for our families, because it's so hard just to even pull up. And then it's like, okay, we're kicking you out of the car, bye. And it's not that. We really kind of encourage families to come and help them get settled in.
Yeah, thank you. It's, you know, a full university effort. Like you said, there's a lot of moving volunteers that come from across campus that want to be a part of the excitement of helping students get moved in. So I did see a question about Passage. Passage will be that same process. So we will have the golf carts running. There might not be as many move-in volunteers, but the Passage mentors also help with it that day, making sure that those students get moved in smoothly. And we will have the golf carts up and running, and our staff will be all there ready to welcome our Passage students. So they can show up. It was originally communicated 1 to 4 for the Passage students. The leaders were moving in the morning and they were moving in the afternoon. Honestly, we'll be there. So anytime between 9 and 5, if it works well for you all, come on up and we will get you moved in.
Okay. And so Shocker Dining, are parents, guests allowed to eat with their students in there? And if so, what's it going to cost them?
Sure. So for the move-in brunch, anyone is welcome to join them free of cost. Dining does this each year as a nice welcome to all the students. Past that, they usually have 2 guest passes that are a part of their plan that they can use before they have to use any dining dollars. The at-the-door rate, where if someone's just wanting to pay cash, is usually about $8.50 for brunch, and they can use dining dollars or a credit card to pay for that cost.
Okay, great. And do you know what size the beds are? That we have a 6'3" student coming in.
Sure, absolutely. We've got a lot of the WSU basketball team. All the freshmen stay in Shocker Hall, and we have the twin extra longs, and it does accommodate those folks. If it's a real issue, you can talk to us. We've had, you know, sort of medical exemptions or exemptions in the past where you've brought your own mattress for various reasons. So if there's something that's an issue, do come see us at the front desk in Shocker Hall. If students have any maintenance requests during move-in, they can actually log in to their housing portal and put those in themselves now. now. They don't have to come down to the desk and do it. So we'll have a lot of chance to teach them about that at like our opening floor meetings that the RAs will be putting on. But if there are any issues, like the bed or things in the room, do come see us because we want to make sure that everything's just right.
Great segue, Katie. When will the floor meetings take place?
Sure. So they are generally that Sunday before classes start. Some of the RAs may have them on Saturday, just depending on, they kind of either touch base with their residence life coordinator or with the students on their floor. So the living learning communities will be getting together for a dinner on Wednesday. If a student isn't moved in yet or isn't there, it's not a big deal. We'll get them later. But we just try to do a little bit of welcome programming for the majority that are moved in by that Wednesday. And then, yeah, be paying attention, because your RA is either going to put a note under your door or tape it to your door. A lot of them get group me's going and different ways to contact all the residents and make sure they're aware of the floor meetings. We say they're slightly mandatory. Like, we're not going to hold it against you if you've got something else going on, but I really encourage students to make it a priority to be there so they can hear kind of the expectations of the floor and get to know the other students they're going to be living with.
Yeah, I always tell parents at orientation that I will carry my fanny pack with me and have scissors and tissue. Nice. And when it comes time to the floor meetings, you don't have to leave, but you can't go with your student to this. And so it's really a great opportunity for your student, like Katie said, to connect with other people on their floor, to start building those relationships and community, and really see, okay, these are my people that I'm going to live with for the next year. And those group me's and relationships begin at that moment. And so for your student not to attend, it's going to be a detriment to them. And so we really want to make sure that they're there. And if they're not moved in yet, then there'll be another opportunity for it. But just, if you wanted to go out to dinner that night with your student, I'm going to tell you, put a pin in it, and you're going to go get ice cream after they go to their dinner, because this is really important. So just keep that in mind. How about decorations? Because I have a lot of students who have shared with me their Pinterest page. They want to put up lights and hang big old tapestries. And so what can they use to hang things on the wall, or can they?
Whoever invented those LED lights, man, I want to really give it to them, because those suckers do not come off walls nicely. So we have tried for a long time to keep up with all the various ways that you can stick things onto the wall and say yes to this one and no to this one. We've kind of come back to a more blanket policy of, if you damage the walls at the end of the year, you might get a charge for that. So essentially, if you know how to take off a command script correctly and it will not damage the wall, then you're fine. That's good. If it tears the paint off the wall, there are various charges starting at $25, depending how big of a spot you're taking off. If you have 10 pinholes in your wall, that's considered wear and tear. We're not going to charge you for that. If you have 100 pinholes because you put something on the entire border of your wall, there probably is going to be a charge associated with that. So students can certainly, try to hang some different things, and there's lots of different ways to do that nowadays. They've come out with a lot of really cool products. So feel free, they can bring bookshelves and things to put decorations on too, which are sometimes more handy than trying to put in a heavy shelf that would require some serious nails. So we recommend you try to keep things off the walls if you're worried about damage charges to a certain extent. So the putty seems to work pretty well. Blue painter's tape is another easy one. Again, those command strips, I'm 50-50 in my own house on whether they damage or not. So it's at your own risk.
I had a family who gave me a great tip that worked for their student. And it was, they put the painter's tape down on the wall first, and then they put the command strip on top of the painter's tape. And they said that worked. And so
nice. I like that. That's a good idea.
But it worked for this one family. So hi to Deanna Palacios from Texas. We are excited to have you and your family join us on campus, Deanna. And so moving on.
Can I jump in? Sorry. When we're talking about LED lights, because this came up at orientation, LED light strips is on the packing list as an item not to bring.
They tend to tear the tape off or the paint off, and they've never seen a good one yet. And again, at your own risk, if you really want to give that a try, or again, maybe you put painter's tape down and you put it on top of the painter's tape. They are just a bear to get off.
They definitely are. My own walls in my house have been ruined by that. And the stick-on Lego tape too, like, don't, y'all don't. But there is that packing list. So just as a reminder, make sure that you check the packing list. So it is, at your own risk. It might be on the do not bring list, but go in, eyes wide open, ready to incur costs if that's your speed.
Yeah. And so, okay, so now that we're moving in, let's talk about the costs. This is always something that is brought to Kim and I's attention during new student orientation. A lot of times students have signed up for housing without families kind of taking a look at what they're signing up for. And then they realize, like this is more than I thought. And so how, what advice do you have for families to be able to get in and look at their housing bill, as well as can you kind of explain kind of what that looks like and how they would make payments and all of that?
Sure. And it can definitely be confusing because if they've changed rooms and we've taken charges off and put credits on, it can show a lot of different line items that are sometimes hard to interpret. So feel free to give us a call. We'd love to walk through it with you and make sure you understand what all you're seeing on your bill and why it's there, because it may be a meal plan change. And so there's a credit and a debit. And why is that the case? Students have the first 2 weeks to change their meal plans. So if they got $1,000 dining dollars and they'd rather have less to not incur that cost up front, they can change that in the first 2 weeks. As far as room changes and going to maybe a cheaper room or a different room, I did see somebody mention they're on the engineering LLC floor and they're not an engineering major. Can they change rooms? Yes, we do a room freeze though for the first 2 to 2.5 weeks until everybody's in, because we do have no shows and we have people shifting for various reasons. So we try to say, hang tight, get to know your roommate if that's your reason. But if there are other reasons, you can apply for a room change kind of after September 1st is our rule of thumb, unless there's an emergent situation. And so that's another way, again, to bring down your bill. If you're seeing that private room that you think you really needed is more expensive than you'd feel comfortable with, again, we have triples and doubles that are still readily available. And if you take a look at those spaces, those might work for your student too. So again, give us a call. I think everything situation is so individual that we'd love to walk you through it and make sure you've got a good understanding. Yeah, and that's the info desk number. The main housing office number is 978-3693, and that will get you to somebody who does contracts and our accounts on the side of that. So 978-3693. The desk will get you transferred as well.
Okay, great. Kim, what about parking? Do you know anything about parking permits? Because
why do I get the parking?
Do they need it? Do they not need it? Can they park in a red zone?
Yes.
Green, maybe yellow. What does that look like?
No, think of it as a stoplight. Red means stop, do not park. You will get a ticket and it will be rather expensive. And if you're the ones paying the bills, you're going to see all of those because tickets are emailed to students. They do not get the little slipped under, like when we were all students, we got a ticket and we knew, and it was on our windshield. It's sent to the email. So keep an eye out for that. But yes, you do need an email. You do need a parking permit. You can still purchase those if you go to the portal. So your student can go to their mywsu.wichita.edu. On the upper right hand kind of line of icons, you'll see a big P for e-permit. So click on that. And walk that through or just walk through the process for that. So yes, there is still time. I'll let Katie talk about how parking for the where that parking is for residents, but you want to make sure that you get that done. You all as visitors, you don't get charged for move-in or anything like that. You can kind of come and go. Our police department is there and they know what's happening, so you don't have to worry about that. But there are some visitor options. I think it's 5 times you can visit campus without like for the day, without having any permit. After that, you need to get a daily permit, which you can do at wichita.edu/parking. So keep an eye out for that. That's a really informative website, and it has the entire campus map on there and tells you what parking lot is what. Our students are green go. In the green lots, you're good. In the yellow and green lots, you're still good. In the yellow lots, you need to be cautious because typically at 5 o'clock, after 5 o'clock, those will open up to student parking in the weekends and things like that. But that's faculty staff parking, and red is reserved. Do not, you or your student, park in reserved. Alicia's got stories about how she did when she was a student, how many hundreds of dollars that she owed the university upon graduation because she didn't park correctly. Won't go there. But Katie, if you want to talk about where the students would park for those buildings, just so the parents know, then that'd be great.
Absolutely. So residential students have the same parking pass as the rest of the students. It's green, and they can park in any green lot on campus. There's one close to Shocker Hall. It's kind of north of Cessna Stadium that a lot of them park in, or the Coke Arena lot. Over at the Suites, they have their own lot, but it only holds about 120 cars. So several of them will either park in the Flats lot or over by the baseball stadium. The Flats lot has a lot of spaces, and it also has an underground parking lot. Now, if they want that underground parking space, that's an extra cost. It is more expensive than your typical green, but they have worked now to where if you buy that underground parking spot, it includes the green in it. So you can park in green or down below for that extra cost. So that's a new thing that's happened. And they would purchase that by actually working with parking services directly. You have to go in person to the parking services office to purchase that underground permit. And there still are permits available for purchase at the Flats. Only Flats residents can park in there because you can access the building through the parking garage. So Suites, again, they've got a nice lot over there if you're quick in the morning to get there, or you leave your car there for a while. And Shocker, they've got spaces not too far. And again, during move-in, that whole week is pretty much a grace period. They know students are just figuring things out. They're not ticketing. They will start really when classes start. And even then, I think they give the first 2 days of classes a little bit of leeway. You'll see that for move-in, we have some of those precious red spots reserved for move-in, but we'll cover the red sign and it'll say move-in parking. So you'll know that's okay. Then and only then. So enjoy it while you can.
And so when students go home over break, so say fall break is going to be the first one that comes up, are there dining options available still?
Yeah, great question. So the dining hall might have some limited hours over some of our breaks. And if it's closed, there are still other options. There'll always be a dining option open on campus, whether that's the ground house with more grab and go items. It can become more limited, especially over winter break when it's shut down, but there will be something open for students. Starbucks is often the go-to. And again, they have sandwiches and other things besides drinks to get by with. So we'll put a lot of notices up when it's getting closer to a break time to remind students the dining hall closes after dinner today, be sure to get in there or head to the ground house. So they do need to kind of keep an eye out for some of those notices for limited hours over break times.
Yeah, and we'll, I know our dining folks do a really great job, as does housing. If you are not a part of the Shocker Family Facebook page or the Shocker Family network for parents to network with one another, both offices do a phenomenal job of going in to update in there what those limited hours are, where students can go and pick up food, because that's the last thing, as a parent, we want to worry about is, how's my baby going to eat? I promise you, you're a student. We're not going to let them go hungry. But it just may not be what they want to eat, but there are options for them to eat.
Right. And you can always stock up and use our community kitchens as well to cook a little something up.
Absolutely. So on the 19th, will there be any volunteers on the 19th?
Great question. That's outside of our Yeah, that's outside of our actual move-in days, so it's more limited. So the golf carts will be gone, but students are more than welcome to move in, and the RAs will still be around. So really, the 14th through the 16th was our advertised big move-in, and if students are coming out later after that, they should expect a little less fanfare. A lot of students will already be in the spaces at that point, but we'll be there to support them and still help them get what they need done. So I did see a question about an elevator. There are elevators in all three of our buildings, and so there are several elevators in Shocker Hall. There is a set in the suites. So yeah, it'll be easy to get things up and down without taking on the stairs.
Okay. And do you know about how many outlets are in the room? Should they bring power strips, things like that?
Great question. A lot of students do have a lot of electronics, and power strip is not a bad idea. Gosh, let's see, off the top of my head, I'd say there's probably 4 different places that have outlets. You know, you've got some up by the vanities in the Shocker Hall rooms. You've got some near the bed, some near the desk, and I think some across from that where the fridges generally get plugged in. Just make sure they're those UL approved ones, so you're not, making all the breakers go out in the room, that sort of thing. But yeah, a lot of folks will show up with some extra plugs to make sure they can get everything in. And they do at Shocker Hall, they have wired internet, whereas over at the suites and flats, it's all wireless. So they have, the option to bring that Ethernet cord and plug in over at Shocker Hall.
Great. All right. So command strips. Use them at your own will. A question, Hilda had a question about bus or shuttles going to the airport. No.
I can't say
unfortunately, for sure. Yeah. So unfortunately, we do not have a shuttle system or a bus system that goes to the airport to bring students to campus. And so if your student is flying in for move-in, or flying out to go home over break, we do ask them to coordinate with friends on campus, use Uber or share ride. A lot of times they're able to coordinate with other people on their floors for times to get to the airport. So unfortunately, that is not a service that we provide. However, we do offer a free transit system within the Wichita area for students to use. And so if your student is coming to the university and not bringing a vehicle, they're going to be okay. They'll still have access to use the transit system. It'll take them throughout the city. But more importantly, it will get them to Dillon's. It'll get them to Walmart. It'll get them to Target. Now, they may not prefer to travel that way. However, it's available and it's free. And so it's just, their comfort level and being able to use it. We'll have information out during the first couple weeks of classes, encouraging students to utilize the shuttle service because it is really phenomenal and helps them just kind of get around and navigating Wichita. So a student is vegan. Are there options within the dining services to support this choice?
There are, and I'd say we're getting more and more, as Chartwell's gets, more familiar with some of the different options available that they can provide on campus. They're working towards making that a regular option. So we've got a great dining services manager. Matt Prey or Jamie, both with Chartwell's, are great about setting up meetings individually with students and educating them on their choices so they can give them either a tour of the dining hall and show them what spaces are best suited for what their dietary needs are, as well as they take a lot of feedback on, items that folks want stocked in the ground house or some of their other options on campus. So I think communication is just a key piece of making sure you let folks know what your needs are and if they're being met or not, and then we'll do our best to improve in those areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Wi-Fi, is that available in Shocker Hall?
Sure. So there's free Wi-Fi in all 3 buildings. Yes. In Shocker Hall. So again, they can get the wired internet as well as Wi-Fi. So they can, sometimes that's a little more secure, a little more, less spotty if there are 800 students getting on the Wi-Fi. We've done a lot of work on our Wi-Fi in the last several years, especially with online courses. We've added more wireless access points. They've added some guest passwords that are supposed to help the network. So our ITS group is really great, but that's a lot of people in a small area getting on with a lot of devices. So we continue to work on improvements, but Shocker Hall, especially with that wired internet, guarantees a really fast connection. Suites and flats, we have continued. I've heard there's been good improvement in the flats. We got some great feedback this year that all the additional wireless access points made a big difference. And we're continuing to add to that capacity so that they can be on all the things at all the times.
Okay. Stephen, I am right there with you. I'm all about the bacon. We got plenty of bacon, Stephen, when you come. Join us for breakfast anytime, but we also have options for your student as well. I would like to go ahead and just say, before we wrap up, if there's other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I do want to open it up to Kim because I know there's some maybe last minute announcements or maybe reminders about orientation or just other things that are some tips for families. Typically, this next orientation is going to be a pretty big one. And so Kim and I will be at that orientation to meet with folks. We have a wrap-up session together where we answer a lot of questions and we talk a little bit more in depth about what you can expect as a parent. If you have not already done so, I highly encourage you to sign up for our parent family newsletter that will go out here in the next week, where we will talk to you about things that are happening on campus, reminder, important dates and deadlines coming up. There's a lot of information that you have gathered throughout the summer, and we don't expect you to remember it all. And so that's what we're here for, is to help kind of share that information with you when you need to know it. And so if you've not already done so, go to the website, wichita.edu/family newsletter. Go and put your information in so we can make sure that gets to your inbox. So I'll turn it over to Kim real quick. If there's any additional information you want to share.
Sure. So there's a number of programs. We've talked about Passage to Success or PASS. That's the same program. One feeds into Passage feeds into PASS. We talked about Shocker Engineering Academy. We have Launch Week happening all week long, the week of August 15th. We've got Shocker Promise Scholars happening next week. And so if you're coming to campus for any of those programs happening before campus starts, it's really important that either you all have completed your orientation or you have scheduled in a way that does not coexist with or conflict, I guess, with that. So if you're coming for an early program that starts next week, we need to make sure that you're in the last orientation. If you are coming for a program that is the week before classes start, we need to get you in Monday and Tuesdays. And if they're overlapping and you have no way of getting here, then we need to have a conversation about what that looks like, because you can't attend a week-long program, but also, dip for 2 days to do orientation. So we're running into a lot of students that didn't realize that ahead of time with that scheduling. So it's really, really important that you know your schedule. And we've talked to a lot of parents. We know a lot of you have multiple kiddos, some of them younger, who are starting, you're coming from out of state and they're starting their school years and you're trying to juggle where and when to be, where and when. And so just really, really take some time to look through that schedule and what is going to work best for your family. Include your student in that conversation. Include your student in any conversation you have about college between now and the time that they begin, because we can't underscore enough the importance of expectations and shared expectations from the parent and the student. Students or parents, one of the questions I saw in our Facebook group was, how do we get access to Blackboard? It's like, well, you don't get access to Blackboard. Your student has to give you the access to their educational record, and that's FERPA, and that doesn't give you probably what you think it's going to give you. It's going to give you end of term, You've got to be talking to your student and having them show you and log in, and you should not be logging in for your students. We'll say it again. You should not be logging in for your students. If you are, it is time to put that responsibility upon your student. We've had parents get a little upset with that too and say, with all this technology, you need to have a portal for parents. It's like, well, I see where you're coming from, but you're not going to be attending the classes or earning those grades. So we need to have a transition now and give that responsibility to the student. And this is where it's time to make that transition. So we're here to help you through that. We can guide you through that process of access. Remember, proxy access is for FERPA. Student account suite access, that's the I'm blanking on the name. Authorized user. Authorized user is what you need for payments to see the bills. That's the extra, side door access, as I call it, to all of the payments. And anything beyond that, you really don't have the opportunity to see. And so that's why we really underscore the importance of having the conversations. How many times do you expect your student to check in with you? If your student begins to send you to voicemail that they either haven't set up or that's full, right? What does that look like for you? And what are those expectations? So that's the kind of conversations that should be happening at this point. And again, we're here for you if you have any questions about that or to help you and your student through that.
Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right, Kim. That is often like the number one call that I get is my students not responding. I share many stories at orientation about getting woken up at 3 a.m. because a student hasn't, checked in at their resident hall on Life 360 or just a lot of different things. And so it's a big transition, not only for your students, but for you as well as parents. And we acknowledge that. And so just trust in the process. I love the fact that there's, families out there who said that by connecting and doing these, virtual sessions, it makes them feel more comfortable that their student is at the right place. And that's what it's all about. Letting you know that when we say welcome to the Shocker family, it's not just that, we're saying welcome to Wichita State, but it's truly welcoming our students as a part of our family, knowing who they are by name, knowing you as a parent. I went to Texas and I had coffee with a parent during a layover that I had saw in the airport. And because they met me on one of these sessions and they're like, "Are you Alicia from Wichita State?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so it was great. We love it. We enjoy meeting you when you're on campus and in town. Hilda, I love that you said, "Are kids going to have to clean their own bathrooms and room?" Yes, girl, they are. And so housing will do some room checks and making sure that their rooms are clean and we don't have any, four-legged creepy crawler friends joining us. And so just, if your student is not accustomed to that, hey, time to break out the vacuum and dust busters and all of the good stuff and give them a quick lesson on how to do that. And so
I would also say, when we talk about we're one Shocker family, families have great times together. Families also encounter challenging times. And, we're all about, we love it here. That's why we've been here for so long and, love our jobs and love doing these programs. But, there will be times that your students struggle and there will be times that your students run into things that aren't the greatest experience. But it really is how they choose to take that on and react to that, how they choose to manage themselves and how they choose to handle situations. And the more we work with students, especially in these last couple of years, particularly this summer, students need a little bit of help in, conflict management, probably roommate problems and issues and resolutions to problems. And they've got to be able to communicate with us, just like they're communicating with you. We're not necessarily going to know that we need to fix something in one of our areas or as a university unless someone's telling us, and we're all very open, I think, to feedback. I think that's something our university does well. We listen to our students and our families and what they need. And if we can do it, we're going to make it happen. And sometimes we can, and sometimes we just can't. But that's a family, right? So some days you love each other and some days you're not so thrilled with each other. And that's real life. We're not here to, say every day is going to be rainbows and unicorns, because it won't. But we'll help your students through that, and we'll help you navigate that as well. But we want you to reach out to us and communicate both with each other and with us. If there's something we need to do better, then let us know. We do things pretty darn good around here, I feel like. But there's always room for improvement as well. So
yeah. So we are over time by a couple minutes, but I know you enjoy us just as much as we enjoy talking with you. And so before we close out today's session, I want to say congratulations to Paul Haney. I hope it's Haney, Paul. Congratulations, Paul. Your student is the winner of 50 Shocker dollars. Yay! And so we will be reaching out to you to make sure that we get those applied to your student's account. Again, we are excited to have you all join us on campus in a few short days. And if there's any questions between now and then, please do not hesitate to reach out and give us a call, shoot us an email, stop by and see us, knowing that we are here for you. Again, thank you for joining us this evening. And as always, welcome to Shocker Nation. Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye-bye.